You can't have an election in the middle of a political season. We just had Super Tuesday, and we had a Tuesday after Tuesday already, and we'll bring crime back to law and order.
Oh, Grandpa's falling apart. Yeah, work as hard as you can, become president again, and you can bring crime back to law and order. And we won't be distracted by elections in our political system. That would be too weird. So anyway, look, the brain rot continues. That's just a little sampling, not even from one of his big rally speeches. That was just a small press conference that he did after yesterday's legal developments. And even in that, he's misplacing words and he doesn't know how to express himself. But we've talked a lot about this on the program recently. We featured, for instance, in an interview, the work of Dr. John Gartner. Now, he is still out there trying to, sort of ring the alarms on what he sees and what other psychiatrists and psychologists see in Donald Trump. But I wanted to give you a little of an update of some of what he's been saying in his interviews, as well as another psychiatrist analyzing the physical state of Donald Trump. There's been a lot of focus on his mind, but she talks about his body, and we'll get to that in one sec. But Dr. John Gartner says Trump can't go a full week without displaying gross signs of what appears to be dementia. This week he said Joe Biden beat Barack Hussein Obama. Ever heard of him? Donald Trump is disoriented. I didn't see that quote, but I don't even know what that would be a reference to. But he goes on to say, in my opinion, this is brain damage. There is no medically credible explanation for these occurrences that doesn't involve brain damage, most probably dementia. His telltale signs used to be more intermittent, but his apparent dementia is progressing at an accelerating rate, as is normal for the illness. And that has certainly been my experience. Feel free to disagree in the comments. These sorts of mess ups in his ability to speak, even when looking at a teleprompter, he used to do that, but he didn't used to do that at anything like this rate. Before we continue with the story, we depend on members to keep on going. Don't wait, click join now on YouTube. Obviously, Donald Trump is under a lot of pressure, not just with the election, but also with the legal troubles. And that is something that Dr. John Gartner thinks could also affect him. So he was asked in an interview with Chauncey DeVega of Salon, what do you think happens next with Donald Trump, given all the pressure he's under, and specifically with his property potentially being seized in New York and elsewhere? And the doctor said, every bit of stress is going to deepen the cracks in Trump's fragile brain, hastening his deterioration. If the press deigns to show them to us, we'll see ever more flagrant displays of cognitive decline and more often. He can't get through a single rally without displaying a tell that looks a lot like a symptom of dementia. Now, he goes on in that interview to predict that you won't see a lot of that from the media. And I'm not sure that I agree with that. There has not been a lot of mainstream media coverage of the undeniable acceleration of this decline. We will have to see once we get into the general election if that's something that pops up more. But I did also tell you about another doctor. This is Dr. Elizabeth Zoffman, who recently had, you can see also an interview with Chauncey DeVega, about the changes in how Donald Trump moves. So you don't often see Donald Trump move. He's often just standing behind a podium or standing to hit a golf ball, but he does sometimes walk on camera, and he does sometimes, I'll say, dance at rallies. And so she said that his walk appears wide-based and he has developed a swing of his right leg. She's talking about in comparison to prior footage of him walking. He appears glued to the floor when he dances for his audience. If caught on camera standing still, he appears unnaturally immobile. And look, I'm not a doctor. I'm not Dr. John Gartner, I'm not Dr. Elizabeth Zoffman, but it could be that if you are having trouble in moving, if you are tripping, if you are having trouble with that sort of thing, or if you feel like your walk is visibly distinct from how it used to be, then you might not want to move a lot when people are watching you. You might not want to have that visible evidence of your decline. And so perhaps you won't produce mashups like the Trump War Room did on Twitter of Joe Biden tripping or whatever, but that doesn't mean that there aren't valid concerns from medical professionals about the state of his mind or the state of his body. We'll just have to see if it's something that voters actually prioritize as we get into this election. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.